From the Middle is a founding member of Odd Pods Media. Hey, everybody. Thanks for tuning in to episode 210. Make sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel. We're three middle-class guys living in the middle of America and the middle chapters of our lives with a point of view somewhere in the middle. In this very fun episode, we start out by talking about some video games and toys that should be, but aren't. We talk a little bit about Formula One, soccer, a little bit of news, and some things we've been streaming about soccer and Spider-Man. And don't forget a couple quick stories about a surprise birthday party. Tune in and cue that intro music.
Oh, for the love. Sorry, just clearing my Mountain Dew hole.
I got my phone hole cleaned today.
That's where you keep it? You're so cerebral and you're so developed and evolved.
From the middle after dark over here.
All right, so I have a question for you. And really, the greater audience, nay, the greater world. We were talking about you and me and our father were talking about G.I. Joes the other day, right?
Right.
And our dad was obviously into the original G.I. Joes, and we had a lot of the kind of 90s, really popular late 80s and 90s stuff. And then my wife, Bree, and Finley, our daughter, and I were at Hobby Lobby. And I don't know if you've seen these. It's like, I don't remember the name of the company that makes them. They're like Hollywood vintage micro machines, but there's a little set of like 3 cars that are all tied to the same theme. So it'll be like Fast and the Furious vintage Hollywood cars. Anyways, there was a set of 3 G.I. Joe vehicles, and they were so cool looking as these like little micro machines that I'm like, oh man, if they make more packs of these than just these 3, if there's like a series of 3 sets of 3 or 4 sets of 3, I'm ordering all of them because they looked so cool. Turns out they don't. There's just this one set of 3. But that got me thinking, because we also had a discussion and we'd been texting about video games. Why is there not a Star Wars Battlefront-esque game with G.I. Joes and G.I. Joe and Cobra vehicles that you can get in and fly around? How cool of a freaking battle game would that be, first of all? Wow. And then your heroes. So you would have your standard looking Joes, right? And then your heroes are the actual G.I. Joe. Like if you're on the Cobra side and you get enough points in the match, you can be Cobra Commander and like run out as Cobra Commander.
Yes.
And you'd be hopping in all the vehicles and jets and helicopters and stuff on that would make sense for that battle. And I'm like, that's just reskinning Battlefront. That wouldn't even be that hard. It could be the exact same system with reskinned vehicles and terrain. And I'm like, what an incredible game that would be.
So I just did a quick Google. So the Grief Burrito guys are going to have to keep us honest here on the history of any G.I. Joe video games. This Operation Blackout looks kind of like what you're describing, unless it's an RPG. It looks like it could be RPG, not like sandbox Battlefront. But what a great idea!
And so that got me. I went back and Googled G.I. Joe video games and found it looks like somebody made one about every, I don't know, probably 10 years. None of them seem to be rated very well. And frankly, we're kind of in the demographic that if they made a really cool open battle map G.I. Joe game, I think we would have heard about it. If there was a really cool one, we have enough friends that are similar age, that are our type of audience, that would have been talking about, oh my gosh, they reskinned Battlefront and it's all G.I. Joe and Cobra and the lasers and all the right vehicles.
That's a great point.
What an incredible idea for a game that would be, and they don't have to come up with anything new. You
Yeah,
don't.
and then the Easter eggs being all the vehicles that we played with as kids.
Yeah,
Oh,
they already have Battlefront already has ships you can fly around in a level. It's like you literally just need to slap the GI Joe and Cobra skins on them.
you know
Like,
what? Well, you know what would be great is when they get on like the half tracks or the jeeps or whatever. Anywhere that your character is going to step is one of the little pegs that you had to put the female end of their shoe on.
yeah,
Like
yeah,
that'd
just
be
a
an
really
awesome. It's just right.
they almost make it look like a bolt or something, but it's a
Yeah,
peg. And
that's
I
the peg
thought,
where you put his foot.
what would be really cool, depending on the level, is you still have generic looking infantry. So, like, let's just say that there was a battle where there was an aircraft carrier docked. And so some guys are on land and some are up on an aircraft carrier. There's the standard, like, Navy, like, guy. And then the G.I. Joe that you can play with enough points is the one with the beard
Yeah, yeah,
and
yeah.
has the pigeon or whatever, the parrot. And like, I'm like, that would be so effing
Such a
cool.
great point.
Gosh. So
That's a great point.
I don't know who all is listening, but if you can get Battlefront or Battlefield or one of these guys to reskin it with G.I. Joe, I think that would be an incredibly well selling and popular game.
It's got to be a licensing thing, but I wonder if this Operation Blackout is any good. So if you've played Operation Blackout, let us know. It looks like
or
it's close.
if you've ever played a good GI Joe game on any console, as far back as doesn't matter, let us know. I just have a feeling that I think they could have probably done this right after the two live action GI Joe movies, and there probably would have been enough video game studio interest in, like, okay, let's make an open world GI Joe battle game. um I think there's enough people that would play. I think it would. I would buy it for sure.
I feel like GI Joe is one of those licenses where this isn't a fully formed thought yet because I'm having it live. Like, it seems to us like it's huge, but maybe it's not as huge as we think. Or, like you said at the top, you've got like our dad's generation that played with the 12-inch action figures, not dolls, in the 60s. And then we grew up on sort of the 3.5 inch, multiple points of articulation. Maybe it's just not as big of a, maybe the brand hasn't fully infiltrated each generation to the degree that Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Marvel, things like that have. Maybe it's not as big as we think.
Here's my non-businessman pitch to the businessman. The core audience is probably what, 30 to 50.
Yeah.
We're the guys who have money in the world right now anyways. And the younger kids, if a shooting game gets popular, they freaking play it. You can put ninjas and Luke Skywalker and whatever you want in whatever front. What's the for
Fortnite?
Fortnite. You can put all kinds of crazy cartoony characters in there and people will play it. I'm just saying, if they wanted to charge people for the game, they could make it free to play if they really wanted, and then just do skins and stuff. I just think with that moment where you unlock the when you unlock a certain hero, Lady J comes out. Imagine everyone wanting to be Snake Eyes and Storm Shadow and run around with freaking katanas.
One guy has the dog.
Yeah, one guy has the dog and the one guy has the parrot, and they put the different heroes on the different levels where they make sense. Maybe the medic, you can never play as him, but you just see him run out as a computer character and like working on people and taking them away when they get hurt. Like,
dude, it's a great point.
I just think it would be such a good idea. And in the same way, If this gets passed around the gaming communities in the same way, if Red Dead Redemption works for cowboys, you can make something like it in Grand Theft Auto for medieval Europe. I'm just saying you can be a mercenary without having dragons, without having magic, without having whatever. And you're just a knight that can roam around Europe and take missions and whatever. That would work. If people will do it with a cowboy without magic and aliens, they'll do it with a knight. Okay?
Dillon really wants this game.
I really want this game, and I'm not a coder.
For Honor was close, but not close enough.
Not close enough. See, he doesn't even have to fight people from different parts of the world. That was like knights versus Vikings versus samurai or whatever. Like, you don't even have to take him that far. This can just be a guy in like mainland Europe in the Dark Ages. It's fine. It would be fine.
He's just strolling through the woods, and then there's like a guy with a fife that like skips by, and he's like an NPC, and you're like, what are you doing here?
And there's highwaymen that you fight along the way that you're some are stronger than you, some are weaker than you. And sometimes there's only one highway guy, and sometimes there's 10.
The blacksmith in the main castle or the main community teaches you some basic smithing skills. So you have a skill tree where you get archery skills, but keep it all realistic. Don't get dealt into fantasy and magic.
We don't need Legolas. He's already been created. You don't need to slide down rock stairs on a shield and fire 80 arrows. Just keep it realistic. I'm telling you, it would work. Anyways,
I feel like you and I have always felt that we belong in the brainstorm rooms of either toy, video game, or movie studios. Like, toy and game companies, or like movie studios. Like that, the initial pitch brainstorm, you flesh it out a little bit, you get some storyboards, and then before they pitch it to the studios for funding.
I'm convinced I have an idea for a toy, a kind of expensive. It's not even expensive anymore because the toys that are made for adults now, an action figure is like $25 or $30. It's like when we were kids, a G.I. Joe was like $4.99. Mm-hmm. 2-pack was $7.99 or whatever. Mm-hmm. They're not even that expensive anymore. But I feel like I have a really good idea for a toy. But I know it's not easy, and I know toys are a very hard industry. And I'm not talking about it, but I have it.
I was going to say, somebody's going to steal it if you talk about it.
Actually, I would almost rather talk about it than somebody steal it and find out if it can or can't work. Because
I'm interested. I'm here to listen if you want to talk about it.
Well, this is just happens to be coincidental. Coincidentally, it happens to tie into G.I. Joe in that I think the 5 3/4 inch G.I. Joe, is that the size 5 3/4?
I thought it was 3.5 inch. No, that's not right.
No, it's not 3.5. I think it's 5 3/4. I think the 5 3/4 inch size is about perfect for an action figure. I think 12 inches is too big. I think Lego is about as small as you can go, and Lego works very well. Because I think if you go a lot bigger, as you want to scale, I think the thing people don't think about is like when they're building toys. If you grew up in a house like us, the toys had to make sense by scale, right?
Right.
So you couldn't have a 5 3/4 inch G.I. Joe getting in a truck that was half the size of the G.I. Joe.
Right.
That wouldn't have passed.
3.75.
3.75?
Yep.
You were way closer. So not 5 3/4.
3.5. Yeah. They're 3.75, 3.5. Yep.
They feel bigger than that. Okay, 3.5. I think 3.5 or whatever, 7.5 is right around the biggest that you can make something and scale slightly smaller than the perfect ratio trucks and buildings, and it still makes sense. And you've got some space on a floor, a kid's room or a playroom or something to put up a couple buildings, put up a couple trucks. So my idea is I want to see that size in same era medieval soldiers, both base level soldiers with multiple accessories. So for any of the 90s people, if you remember Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves, they came out with a set of action figures for the Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves movies that were about the same size as G.I. Joes. Yep. Now, they weren't as posable. These need to be posable like G.I. Joe. But They had bows, they had arrows, they had swords, they had stuff that were a nice ratio size for their playability. And I think you start out by launching packs of like, here's 3 French bowmen, just the same guy. And then if you want to start doing a guy on a horse, like a king character, but you're doing them based off of real countries.
Yep.
And you're doing them based off of real weapons. Now, you can, if parents don't love the idea of gun toys for kids, the way you kind of get around and market it is that fantasy element a little bit.
Yeah.
There's no dragons, there's no magic, but you're like, oh, go back in time to medieval, whatever. And now you've got these like English longbowman pack, and you've got Scottish Highlander pack, and you're purposefully marketing not the hero, you're marketing like soldier packs because that's what they have different color hair and maybe different beards and just different enough, but with similar weapons. And I think that would be so cool if you could get like start to build these little medieval armies across Europe in that like 3.5-inch size. Then you have your castle. You get a couple castles that look a little different. You paint them a little different color flags, and a few bits of like siege weapon packs that you can sell.
What's that line? What's that line that you always see? It's like it's at the back of Meyer.
I know exactly what it's like the fancy. It's like the fancy.
They're very detailed, but there's zero posability.
They need GI Joe level posability.
GI Joe level points of articulation.
Yes.
So I think people make a decision in toy design where it's like, are we going for hyper realism or customization, swap out weapons, change helmets? Because those, whatever brand, whatever line of toys that is, they make some animals too. They have a lot of those, but you can't pose them whatsoever.
I'm probably saying this wrong. It's Schleich.
Yeah.
Or Schleich or Schleich. And they are pretty cool. Like I did want those as a kid, and I think they're pretty neat. But my thinking, and you can look them up, they're not bad. My thinking is though, if you're going to go through that level to paint all of these guys, plus they're kind of generic. They're not really based off of, everyone is painted different, so they don't look like they're on the same teams, and you need a little bit of flexibility. Like the horse needs to be able to move its knees, right? Yeah. So like just a little bit of articulation. I don't know. I just think that there's enough adult nerds like me that would buy a bunch of those things because they're basic knights and would love goofing off with them.
Dude, this whole time you've been talking, I've 100% been listening, but I'm also clicking through by year the 3.5-inch GI Joes and all the nostalgia.
Oh, we part of the.
I had that guy. I had that guy. We used to fight over Tunnel Rat.
Yeah, part of the
dude, Tunnel Rat. Look at him. Do you remember?
I do. In the gray GI Joe who looked Russian with the red hair.
Tunnel Rat.
I thought, that guy right there. Yep. We fought over because these were, if we wanted, because we would kind of like pick sides and they would be part of our army. And so you really wanted to pick who you liked.
Oh, Croc Master. And he came with an alligator.
So cool. That's what I'm saying. You get enough points in the video game and you come out with Croc Master with a freaking alligator.
Chuckles. Dude, if you're watching on YouTube, I'm clicking through thumbnails of these guys we used to play with. Oh my gosh.
Sneak peeks. We never knew their names though.
No, we didn't keep the cards.
Unless it was Snake Eyes or Storm Shadow or Sergeant Slaughter or something. Yeah, it's totally fun. I did the same thing. That's how that conversation with our dad started, because I think we found a video of somebody doing a bunch of in their basement and had a bunch of GI Joes.
We need to link to that video. You showed me this. Somebody made an incredibly elaborate diorama, including the aircraft carrier and the fort, and had lights and spent a ton of time. Anyway, we need to link to that later.
We'll share it out. Yeah, for sure. So anyways, that's what I've been up to lately.
Well, speaking of toy design, can you come up with a submarine that Listen, I know we don't do news, but do you have any comments on Ocean Gate? And
Well, I probably could have designed a better submarine than that guy was. At one point, they like pulled off the website or something off their materials. The phrase, something like, oh, the CEO uses an aggressive cost benefit analysis. Anyone in business hears that and you hear cheap. That's what that means. An aggressive cost benefit analysis on their programs and materials means cheap. I saw an article that the what's the plastic material, but it's really durable.
it was carbon
Carbon fiber, not plastic. The carbon fiber was purchased from Boeing after it had expired. The monitor in the shuttle was screwed into the carbon fiber. I mean, just all kinds of stories now coming out about this guy. It's like, he said, people will remember me hopefully as an adventurer. No, you're going to be remembered as a cheapskate who like took
there's an engineer who raised serious concerns about the integrity of the vessel, and they basically were like, you need to just sign off on this, and he said no, and they let him go. Like, listen, I think this is a perfect thing to take a centrist point of view on, because on one side of the spectrum, online, at least on my social media feed, are people sharing photos of playground equipment, helicopters, saying giving free rides, giving $250,000 rides over volcanoes. Book your trip now, with a photo of I don't think we're going that far and making fun like this is serious and this is people's lives, but we're also not going to be like, hey, there weren't some serious things that were overlooked when going to a depth. And I think another thing that the engineers raised up, and again, I'm just flipping through articles, but like, there was no way that type of glass could withstand certain depths. And they're like, it's fine. And then they kept bragging about the fact that there was like only one button inside. It was, used the PlayStation 4 controller as its primary.
It was worse. It was an old Logitech controller that's like $30 online. And he was bragging like it shouldn't be any more difficult than it's this to hit one button. It should be a little more difficult to go that far underwater where animals don't live, where sea mammals don't live. It should be a little harder than one button like an elevator. I disagree with you. And frankly, like, if you're still into the story, go on YouTube and look up James Cameron's reaction, because he's basically like, this is silly that this happened. This was totally avoidable. Literally, the point of the story of the Titanic was heed warnings, and you were given tons of warnings over the years that you didn't listen to, and now a second ship is buried by the Titanic because of hubris, because you wouldn't literally listen to the story that you were telling your passengers.
Over 100 years, and this ship is still claiming lives. It's,
it's wild. I haven't been that interested, frankly. It sounds like I am. My wife has been keeping me informed of what's been going on. That I've seen a few videos, but it's nuts. Like, because in my head, I'm thinking, when did Titanic come out? I remember James Cameron was using a regulated submarine to get down to those depths safely, like 20 years, 30 years ago, to do that, or 20 some years ago. We have had the technology for way longer than this guy's been doing. It's not like he was the first person to ever go to space and they're like, oh no, we've learned a lot, but he was a pioneer. Like, no, you weren't even the pioneer. People have been doing this already for decades. And it's really sad that he hurt more people than himself. And I'm surprised. She said there was something like he'd gone out like 30 times in this submarine or whatever. I'm surprised it didn't happen sooner. It is a tragedy. I'm sad that anyone lost their life, but it seems pretty clear cut that he had tons of warnings.
Do you think that's what frees people up mentally and morally to share all these memes, is because it seems so stupid that it's like, we're going to laugh about this because it seems like such a silly tragic, sad, but avoidable thing. So we can.
And I think like the number of people who have come out and said, I almost did that, but I looked into it and it seemed like a terrible idea. A lot of times, especially Americans, we associate wealth with intelligence. And so I think it was easy for him to convince a lot of people that it was safe enough because he was a billionaire and this was his company. And, he was selling $250,000 tickets to this thing. So I think a lot of people looked at him and was like, well, this guy's a billionaire and he's doing it. He wouldn't want to die. So clearly it's got to be safe. But there was also tons of stories. There's also tons of people now coming out saying, yeah, I could have got on that and I just couldn't do it. It just didn't look safe. It just didn't, and so I don't know. I think so. I think because there were so many warnings. It's honestly, if you ever watch like the fail army videos and the fail, the videos that I never mind laughing at are the ones where people totally did it to themselves. Like I don't like watching the car crash videos.
No,
somebody in those fail army because somebody is being impacted that didn't choose that situation. But then when it's like the kid jumping off the roof onto a table with barbed wire because he's pretending to wrestle and he hurts himself, it's so easy to just go,
Yeah, we've talked about this before, and Chris D'Elia's term for that is the deserve it scale. If the deserve it scale is high, drunk people, college students, a bunch of people trying to show off. If the deserve it scale is high, the likelihood that I'm going to laugh harder is also high. Right. The ones that aren't funny to me, it's like an amazing gymnast who does a tumble where they like totally nail 90% of the tumbling routine, but then the last step they face plant. I'm like, that's not funny. They're awesome and they're practicing.
Exactly. Anything where somebody's clearly an expert and they just didn't nail it that time, you're like,
not funny.
It's not funny. They're just practicing.
But I'm with you. Like the crazy, like somebody will have a dash cam in Russia and a pedestrian's going across the street and like two oil tankers hit. And I'm like, no. I'm not. Why are they in the same video compilation?
Yeah.
The deserve it scale is very low on those. All right. In other news, I thought you might have heard about this one. There are some 90s Taco Bell items returning to the menu. Have you heard about this?
I've not. Let's go.
Okay. For those of you not watching, Dillon just did a really interesting fist bump situation. ABC 6 on your side is reporting that Taco Bell is turning up the summer heat with the return of its volcano menu. Do you remember the volcano menu?
I remember the volcano menu.
The menu includes the volcano taco for $2.49 and the double beef volcano burrito for $3.99. Both items come with classic volcano sauce that first made its debut in 1995, then again in 2008. Side note, you can also add volcano sauce to other items on the menu for $1. The items will be available to everyone on June 29th, but Taco Bell reward members will have early access on June 27th.
And they just brought back, whether this was in the same promotion or not, they just brought back the enchilada, which is your little beef taco steamed with red sauce on top. You'd eat it with like a spoon or a spork.
Yeah.
Just brought that back. And so my only question is, are they going to bring back the Chihuahua to help promote the 90s items? Because we have Grimace. Grimace is back, if you haven't seen. McDonald's and the Hamburglar is back.
Oh, so somebody was saying that like for his birthday, you could get a special shake or something.
Yeah, it was gross, but you could get it. And you can only get it in his happy birthday. It was like a special kids meal or birthday. It was very good. But yeah, you could. It was like a berry, kind of like a berry shake. I just want the Chihuahua dog to come back if we're going to do that. I think that would be awesome. I also saw pronouncing if you want to feel bougie, pronounce Grimace like Versace. and then go order his birthday meal or some McDonald's. Everyone can figure that out one at home. I thought that was pretty good. But I want the Yokiro dog back from Taco Bell.
I'm instantly sweating thinking about Grimace.
This nostalgia train, man, it's hard. And everyone's doing it right now. Have you seen the Lego 100 Years of Disney, the different Lego stuff?
No.
If you go to lego.com, for anybody, even if you're not really a Lego fan, but if you're like a Disney fan, go to lego.com and it says Disney 100. And they're doing all these sets, and a bunch of the minifigs are Disney characters. And they even did a little villain set that looks like several books and things on a bookshelf. And it comes with different villain minifigs to go with it. They redid the Disney castle. You can buy mystery packs with Disney mini. I just got Coco in a mystery pack with his little dog and the bad guy from Princess and the Frog. Gosh, man, this nostalgia train is chewing along hard. It's so good. So give me the Kiro dog with my Disney 100 Lego.
Oh, that's funny, Grimace. I'm gonna share my screen one more time for the. Is this what you mean? These
Yeah, but there's a bunch of different sets, so it's not just that. So if you click the Disney 100 and scroll, these are all. So there's the villain bookshelf.
Okay.
There's a VHS tape with books on a bookshelf. All kinds of there's castles.
Is this the new castle?
That's the new castle. Yeah, it looks really good. Comes with a bunch of minifigs. The little treehouse, the enchanted treehouse, has a bunch of Friends type princess minifigs, or doll figs, or whatever they call them.
Oh, Winnie the Pooh, Little Mermaid clamshell. Yeah, it's cute.
There's so many. So like, because of 100 years of Disney, they're doing a lot. Yeah, I have a handful. I got the Big Hero 6. The movie is Big Hero 6. It's
Baymax.
Baymax. I got Baymax. I got Pocahontas and gave it to my daughter. I got Coco. I got Robin Hood Fox. They're cute. You can check them out on lego.com.
All right, last piece of news, and I have to comment also again for those not watching on YouTube. Dillon's hat game has been on point for the last couple episodes. He had his Wrexham FC hat on last time. Now he has on his Richmond AFC hat. Speaking of Ryan Reynolds, so here's a Ryan Reynolds Formula One mashup. Alpine have secured a €2 million cash injection from a group of investors, including Hollywood actor Ryan Reynolds, to support the French operation's sporting ambitions in Formula One. Alpine are currently fifth in the Constructors' Championship, one place lower than they finished the last campaign, and have been searching for investment to help close the gap to F1's leading teams. The investor group, formed of Otro Capital, Redbird Capital Partners, and Maximum Effort Investments, have acquired a 24% stake in the F1 team, placing their value, say Alpine, at around $900 million. The group have worked with NFL side Dallas Cowboys, America's National Football League, French football club Toulouse FC, and English football team Wrexham FC. Blah, blah, blah. And then it goes into Reynolds buying Wrexham. And yeah, that's pretty interesting.
How do you feel about that, Mr. Formula One fan?
So my second favorite driver is one of Alpine's drivers, Pierre Gasly. I'm a Max Verstappen fan. I was before he won the championship, so don't say I'm a fair weather fan. I had chosen him as my driver before I finished the Netflix series. So yeah, I think it'll be interesting. Money makes the sport go around. So we'll see what happens. I just think it's interesting that he's a part of this investment group getting into all kinds of different things.
That's interesting. And speaking of which, money in sports, have you watched this documentary Super League, The War for Football on Apple TV Plus?
No.
All right. So I'm slowly getting myself into soccer / football everywhere else. And Really interesting. I had started this documentary in like January or February and then put it down and picked it back up. It basically is going over, so like all the different European leagues are like the real money makers of football around the world.
Okay.
Football's popular everywhere. And out of all of the country leagues, there's the UEFA Champions League. And again, limited knowledge. Somebody correct me who's a huge football fan. But out of the country contests, people can win those and then go to UEFA's, that's European soccer's or overseeing organization, go to their Champions League, and this pits like the best teams against the best teams. So what this documentary is covering is how over the last 3 to 4 years, basically the top 12 teams in Europe were trying to break away entirely from their own countries' leagues to form a super league in Europe. Like basically, we're only going to let the top 12 teams play each other. And it happened to work out to be 6 from the English Premier League, 2 or 3 from Spain, and I think some from Italy, and I'm probably missing one somewhere. And so they were going to make their own league to pocket the most money. And their argument is, hey, this is an evolution. Fans want to see the best clubs play the best clubs. This is what the Champions League is anyways. And our current soccer model financially is not sustainable to support these clubs all the way to the bottom of these pyramids. So the ones that really could make money should make money. So that's their argument. The argument for everybody else is
you devalue our
everything else false. It's like there's no equivalent in American college football, but it's like if all the conferences broke down and went away, and Alabama, Clemson, Ohio State, Georgia all just said, F all our conferences, screw Indiana and Illinois. We're just going to go form a super conference, one for the best 10 college football teams, and we're all just going to play each other and forget everybody. We're going to make a crazy TV deal because it'll just be the 10 best teams playing each other, year over year. And so it's like you're destroying the regionality, you're destroying the ability for these small clubs to work their way up and try to compete at the highest level.
You take the draw away for the rest of those regional divisions or clubs.
Yeah, leagues. You're leaving everybody behind that was in your league. You're, whatever. So it's really interesting, and it was basically how these teams were meeting in private about to announce it, and then how UEFA's like, this is old news to any football fans, but like how they were like combating it. It even went up through the British Parliament and Boris Johnson, like the discussions. It was crazy. So really interesting, but it's got me on this path of like going into Netflix and looking for all the soccer documentaries I can find because it's so interesting. I'm watching one right now in Barcelona, this streak that Barcelona had across like 4 years with their coach at the time, and there's another one on Real Madrid, and there's another one on Pele, and so I'm kind of trying to watch them in chronological order of when they happened in real time. So I'm seeing, it's really interesting. It's all a continuation of Ted Lasso and Wrexham, really.
Hey, just like a Formula One documentary got me into the sport. One documentary and one comedy got you into the sport. Well, before we go to break, since we're on the topic of sports and money, we had touched on Live Golf really disrupting the PGA Tour. Did you hear what happened with that?
I did.
If you can't beat them, join them. They just combined.
Even my mother-in-law, who knows nothing about sports, went, I don't really like that they merged. And I was like, interesting. I don't really know much. Tell me. She's like, they just made it all seem like that they weren't allowed to play in each other's events and were really rude about it. And then all of a sudden they just joined together. And I'm like, I think that's exactly what happened.
So Rory McIlroy has been one of the most outspoken in favor of like defending the rich heritage of the PGA Tour and speaking against Live Golf. And they interviewed him, and he's like, listen, I'm ticked. I will always hate Live Golf, but they were just going to bury us in legal fees and keep this going because they're backed by these Saudi quadrillionaires, and they were just going to keep it going, and we had to either beat them or we had to. They were. It's one of those. If you don't join them, you die.
If you can't beat them, join them.
If you can't beat them, join them. And they couldn't beat them, and they were just going to get drugged through these lengthy legal things. And here's my concern: the precedent that sets, that tactic, if you want to call it that, has now proven that it works. So what's stopping quadrillionaires, these Saudi, any nation that wants to just go, oh, we're going to start our own, pick a sport, and we're going to take some of your top people, just like you're taking the top teams from this Super League documentary, right? We're going to take your biggest superstars and we're going to bring them over to our side. And then the groups that they were a part of say, well, if you do that, you can't come back. Just like what happened with PGA Tour. And then they're going to fight, and we can't play in each other's leagues. And they're going to say, well, you could just join us. And then now it's all basically owned by, you can keep the label of whatever you want, UFC, Formula One, keep your title, but you're basically owned by these monolithic, huge investment groups. And
well, interestingly, that's a part of the Super League documentary about how it goes from local cities owning a team or a local owner to eventually these clubs getting sold to Russian oligarch, Middle Eastern prince, American investment, hedge fund, whatever, no longer even being are they even really a local team anymore? Because most of the fans are local. They're trying to get a global fan base. But to your point, I think rich people have always known they can drag things out in court. So I don't think that part's necessarily new. But if you want to find a way to be a part owner of something and that you're currently being told, no, that's not an option. If you have the money, there probably is an option.
There is a way. Turns
Start
out
your own, and then eventually merge and you'll become an owner.
Turns out with enough money, somebody will pick you up in a black car and take you right to your airplane.
Yes. Yeah. Absolutely.
As we mentioned last week. Well, this feels like a good spot to take a break and hear some words from some of our friends in Odd Pods Media.
I'm Richie, a.k.a. Midnight Agent Raw.
I'm Devin, a.k.a. Special Delivery Dev.
We're the Super Media Bros podcast. And each week, we give a comedically informative take on movies,
music,
television,
pro wrestling,
and much more. Check us out at supermediabrospodcast.com, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or anywhere else that you can listen to podcasts. Shades on.
We're off.
So Sherry and I were talking about this on vacation. I feel like the book of Proverbs in the Bible. I feel like Solomon needed a guy to be like, hey man, do you want to maybe put some of these all together, based on theme, like how to handle your finances or anything? There's really no through line here. We were talking about how as you read through Proverbs, it's just like a man who planteth his seed in the morning is wise beyond his years. And woe to the individual who doesn't shear sheep with sharp scissors. It's like, I instantly thought of an SNL sketch where it's probably Will Ferrell as Solomon and somebody coming in like, hey man, listen, I know individually there's some really good lines in here, but you're jumping topics. And then he won't listen to that guy. And he's just like, hot dogs cooked before morning.
Okay. I'll be Will Ferrell Solomon. You be a guy trying to tell me that I need to try to organize them.
Okay. Hey, Solomon.
Shut up.
Okay.
Shut up.
All
shut up,
right.
Shut up. No, I got another good one.
Okay.
Shut up.
Sorry,
Shut up.
sir. Sorry, sir.
Shut up. That's probably how it happened.
Okay, let's flip it now. and I'll be saying them, and you just like you're the scribe writing them down, but you're trying to convince me that I need to organize these thoughts somehow. Okay.
Yeah.
It is a man's folly to have too many wives. But tigers in a pack will always destroy the weakest beast.
Good. Solomon, question.
Money well spent.
Okay. Yeah.
On hold on, I've got it. A farmer who plants his seeds in the morning will be first to reap those rewards.
This is great. This is great stuff.
And submarines that don't use thicker glass shall meet their doom.
Do you think we need to theme these? Do you think I could use different parchment even? And
women who wear their hair belong.
Okay. Yeah, I think either of those could be really accurate.
It's like, man, there's some really good nuggets in here, but there's no through line.
No.
Anyway, speaking of Sherry, so this is pretty fun, and you were already a part of it, but I'm just going to throw some ideas out to maybe the other significant others and husbands out there. So my wife's birthday happens to be December 23rd, 2 days before Christmas.
Right.
In her entire life, as a child anyway, her parents' birthday celebration for her consisted of the following. Hey, Sherry, your Christmas presents are under the tree. Pick one. Happy birthday. So that was her childhood, the way she tells it anyway. Later in life, when you try to throw a birthday party,
sure,
someone whose birthday is 2 days before Christmas,
yeah,
people understandably are not available. And she's always kind of lamented the fact that people can't get together for her birthday.
Sure.
So like, I don't know, somewhere in our 20s or whatever, I started thinking, wouldn't it be cool to do like a Christmas in July, which I don't know why it's Christmas in July, because exactly 6 months before and after December 25th is June 25th, not July. But anyway, I was like, one of these years, I'm going to do that for her. I'm going to do a surprise party.
Yeah.
On June 23rd, 6 months before and after her birthday. So months ago, I started thinking about it. I started texting some close friends. I started brainstorming. Where do I have it? Could I just rent out a space at a restaurant? One of my friends was like, don't do that, because if you're all seated at a big long table, then she can't really visit with people because she'll be at one end of the table. I was like, great idea. Good point. So one of our friends recommended this local farm and brewery called Henmick Farm and Brewery. Shout out to them. If you're anywhere near Central Ohio, it's a beautiful farm turned amazing venue, brewery, socializing spot with food trucks. It's a bring your own food situation. And they were wonderful hosts. They need good Google reviews. And I promised them I would give good Google reviews, but I'm also strongly recommending them on our podcast as a great spot for a guy's night, a gal's night, or a good party or whatever. It was a great time. So then I started thinking about the guest list, and it's bring your own food. So let's just do her favorite barbecue chicken pizza from a local place. And I was getting so excited. So months I start like planning for this, right? So I'm apparently not great at acting like everything's fine and like lying and I hate planning, but I was doing my best and I had a lot of help and I did a lot of delegating. But it was this past Friday, June 23rd. And I just have to say I thought we had an incredible night. So I just tell Sherry we're going on a date. In hindsight, and I was kind of excited to get all of this over with so her and I could debrief together and I could say like, okay, how much did you know? And then when you thought I said this, what I was really doing was this, right? But she said she knew something was up but she didn't know what was up exactly. She didn't know who would be invited, and she didn't exactly know when, but she knew something was up. And then she said, I knew enough to know that I didn't want to keep digging, and I just wanted to let you like do what you're thing. So that told me she didn't even 100% know it was a birthday thing, but she's 39 right now, gonna be 40 this Christmas. And so 40 felt like a good round number to do this like birthday in the summer thing. So, there were so many little like funny little slip ups and things. I had told 2 of the kids, and 2 of the 3 kids were not helpful. And the one that I thought would tell her didn't. And I told my buddy Greg to come over as soon as we left the neighborhood and pick up my kids so that they could see her reaction. But he knocked 5 minutes before we left, and Sherry saw him. So there was all these little things that happened in and of themselves. No one thing like quote unquote blew it. It doesn't matter. Again, the point is not that she 100% didn't know. The point was that she didn't know who was going to be there. And I normally, anytime we're hosting anything, her and I both say, hey, no gifts. We just want your presence. It's just about getting together. But this felt different. And so in my invite to people, I said, don't go crazy, but gifts. So we had about 20, 25 people at this awesome venue, and she walked in, surprise, and she had a big smile on her face, tears. It was awesome. And it was just a really fun experience, and she felt a ton of love, and it was just something different, and it felt noteworthy, and maybe like a fun idea for not just anybody that has like a birthday that butts up to a holiday. I have another friend who their birthday is like right at the end of the school year, so it always interferes with people's proms and graduation parties and Mother's Day, and they're like, it sucks, no one can ever get together. There's always graduation parties and proms and graduations and Mother's Day stuff. So maybe just a fun idea for like big numbers if you want to try something different. It was a lot of fun. I even had people that were gonna fly in from Denver to Ohio for this, like just so much fun. So happy early birthday, my love. And it was a fun night. It just felt like it was worth sharing. And I wanted to shout out Henmick because Cass, who handles all of their social media and marketing, did a great job tolerating all of my questions and emails. And what do you think of the place?
Very nice. They had food trucks there. I don't know if you mentioned that.
Yeah.
They had food trucks there, which was great. And we brought in food too, to supplement. It was lovely. Tons of outdoor seating, congregating area. And not just like, here's a building that's inside, and then here's a big stone, lot with some chairs, like some natural spaces break it up. There's some like levels outside, so it doesn't just feel flat and boring outside. And then it's really, really nice. Very pretty. Very, very pretty venue.
It was a rainy Friday night, and the place was packed. There was not seating. So this place isn't going to stay, especially with the success of our podcast. It isn't going to stay small for long. But yeah, it was really fun. And I probably would have preferred she was 90% surprised instead of 75% surprised, but it was good.
And honestly, I would say at a really safe, healthy distance from this place, give them plenty of room to breathe and grow. But I think any rural area that doesn't have a nice venue like this, go check it out and get together with some folks in your community and build it. Because I was thinking about where we grew up. We would have had no place like this to go to congregate where food trucks could have shown up. And it was, you bring your own food, like Kory mentioned. That would have been awesome having a place like. Now it was a little different because we didn't live there as adults, but like nothing like that existed near us. And so I just think, you put 100 miles or you put 60 miles in between every business like that, and a lot of rural areas could have a really nice place for people to congregate. There was live music. Shout out to Hit and Run, the band.
Yes, we'll tag them.
Really, really good, really entertaining. They did a great job, and just a really nice venue. But don't go create this near you if you can't do it as nice as Ed McFarms did it, because they did an excellent job.
Yeah. So you said there wasn't really a place like this where we grew up. I think my buddy Chad is involved in a place called 19 Hawthorne that's sort of between where you and I grew up and where our mom grew up. It's more pure wedding venue. It's stunningly beautiful, and they've tiered the landscaping, just the grass, to be like stadium seating, like a amphitheater is for weddings and stuff. But I think this is different in that the food trucks, the fact that they have the brewery right there. So there's always, at the very least, there's always a bar, and the place for socializing and the bring your own food. Yeah, just really
another aspect of that is there were plenty of families who had little kids there because they were enjoying the food trucks and the music, even though there was a bar attached. Yeah. So it wasn't just a drinking hole with nice lights, outside. They did a really, really good job at making it feel like every type of person was welcome there, whether you just came in to have a beer or whether you came to have a quesadilla at the food truck. It was really cool.
Yeah. So that was fun. And thanks to everyone who came out and helped me plan and celebrated Sherry. That was really cool. So I got some fun stuff to share that I've been streaming if you don't have anything else.
Ooh.
So we after that event, our friends Matt and Haley came over and they said, "Have you guys seen Jury Duty on Prime Video?" And I said, "No." I thought they meant the movie with Pauly Shore. They're like, "No, it's this show." So have you heard of this?
No.
Oh, dude, I'm so excited to share it with you because of your love for The Office. Okay. I think you will love Jury Duty. It is, on the surface, it's a documentary about what it's like to be a part of an American jury. Okay. It's filmed in the documentary style with talking heads, and I thought it was weird when the prosecuting attorney said this, and then right. Only that every single person in the documentary is an actor, except for one juror who actually thinks he's been assigned jury duty, and they are going to present these crazy scenarios to him. The whole thing is a setup for only his reaction.
So The Office meets Truman Show.
The Office meets Truman Show. It's perfectly said.
Well, it turns out I've seen a clip from this where somebody can't be a juror because they were going to go away with their girlfriend for the weekend.
Yes.
And the judge says, "That's not a good enough reason. Do you have anything else?" And he says, "I'm racist."
Yeah. Well, the funniest part about that is when they're in the lobby about to be processed for selection, that guy asks the guy who is the subject of this whole thing, "What should I say to try to get out of jury duty?" And the guy that this whole thing is centering around says, "This probably isn't a good thing to go off of, but in Family Guy, Peter says he's racist."
Wait, you're sharing a screen grab. Is James Marsden?
Marsden. Okay, so this all takes place in LA. James Marsden is James Marsden, and they do all of this stuff around people wanting his autograph, and there's paparazzi that show up. So like they wanted an actual celebrity to play themselves to mix up the dude. So the guy right here, the guy that I'm putting the mouse around, this is the guy that it's centered around in the striped shirt.
We'll call him Truman.
He's so I don't want to say he's like gullible, because you've got to be a certain amount, I guess, to fall for all of this, but he's very endearing and affable and kind at heart. And there are so many moral situations that they put him in that he always takes the high road, or either defends the person or takes the blame for the thing. Like somebody puts him in a gambling situation and the game is completely made up and he doesn't really understand the game he's playing and he wins $2,000. And the person was like, I'll have my mom sell her Princess Di Beanie Babies so I can pay you the $2,000. And he's like, hey, man, forget it. Like, it's beginner's luck. Don't worry about it. Like, he's so kind throughout. At one point, James Marsden wants to run lines with him for a fake movie that James Marsden is trying to get a role for. But they're in sequestration for the jury. So they're all in hotels. Oh, the reason that they're in sequestration is because James Marsden wanted to get out of jury duty. So he tried to convince the judge that he'd be too much of a distraction as a juror. And the judge was like, you're not going to be a distraction. It's fine. So he calls the paparazzi and tells them where he's at so that they will come to the courtroom to try to convince the judge. But all that does is put all the jurors in sequestration so they can't go home for a minimum of 2 weeks. So they're in hotels and James Marsden tells this guy that he wants to run lines with him, but he's like, hey, man, I really got to use the restroom. Can I use your restroom? And then they have a prop person, behind the scenes prop person, put a giant turd in his toilet and they need to call maintenance to come and fix the clog. And this guy says, oh, sorry, it was me. So that nobody thinks that James Marsden dropped a big turd. Like, he's just so nice the whole time and you're rooting for him. And then at some point you're just like, okay, he's going to get wise because the situations they put him in to try to make good. It's so good. I can't recommend it enough. Go watch Jury Duty on Prime Video. There's only one season right now. This is easily a repeatable thing in a different situation. You wouldn't use the same premise, but oh man, so funny. And then I finally watched Spider-Man Across the Arachno-Humanoid Polymultiverse, that's what Spider-Man 2099 calls it. Anyway, you were so right, man. I think it's better than the first.
I think it is.
I think it's better than the first. It was so smart. It's hard to talk about without giving stuff away.
Spoiler, it's fine. People have had like a month or 2 months to watch it.
The way that they tie in other Spider-Mans from all kinds of things, all the nods even to the MCU. I have so many positive things I could sit and talk about. And if you've watched Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse, do yourself a favor, go to New Rock Stars on YouTube and watch the whole, I think the first one is like 50 things you missed in Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse. And then they're like another 30 things we missed in our first, all the Easter eggs, all the references, all the little things. There's so much to take in. So I have so much positive to say, but I want to get your take on my only negative, if you could even call it that, was I think they leaned into the art painterly stuff so much in Gwen's world that it almost took me out of it. Like, it almost distracted me, especially the scene when she's having a heart-to-heart with her dad toward the end. The walls are like dripping with watercolor and pastel, and they almost become totally flat, leaving her and her dad to be the only real 3D object. It was almost just a little like, I get it, right? They're trying to add all these different textures. And what I love about doing that is that each character has their own art style. So that was fun. But in Gwen's world especially, I just felt like the pastel watercolory thing almost became distracting. I don't know. Did you think so?
So as the non-artist, that to me felt like the animation was being used to signal like her world, like before her world can be built up again, it literally all has to come like all the color has to just come down before it can be built up, as is her relationship with her dad. Like the color was a parallel to that conversation.
Is the robot schooling me on the use of art for the emotion in a film?
But that's how I felt. That's
such a good point.
That's how I felt watching it. Like they're taking away any visual distraction. It's all being pulled down so that it could be built back up with the resolution of their emotional conflict.
Yeah.
And that's how I felt watching it. I don't know if that's what the artists were going for. And based on reports, I don't know if the artists even knew what the artists were going for, because apparently over 100 visual effects artists left making the movie because it was so rigorous. Like they went through an extra 100 on top of the people who finished the movie. So I don't know if that's what they were going for. That's how I felt watching it. I didn't know 100 artists had left at the time. I know
that's hard to hear.
Weeks later. Yeah, apparently, because if your stuff isn't left in the movie, you don't get credit for making the movie, is what they were saying. So
they're literally and figuratively, I'm learning based on what you just said, there are so many layers. I mean, without giving specifics, and I know it's been a month, but like one of the first villains that one of the main characters fights comes from like a Leonardo da Vinci sort of multiverse.
Right.
So all of the art is done on papyrus in only black and white, right? And every time he like, instead of like thwack or pow, every time he makes contact, you see the little like the Da Vinci cursive font, right? Like and he's on papyrus paper on top of her watercolor pastel world. And then I thought, at one point, wait a minute. Not only is each character represented in their style, they're changing the characters around them based on their proximity with them. So like one of the characters looked a certain way, but when other characters were near him, he looked more rounded out instead of just cut up paper. And I was like, whoa, I think they're even like changing.
They have like an energy aura that's affecting the others.
That's slightly affecting the others. And I was like, there's so much cool, funny, cerebral stuff happening in this movie. Man, I'm just such a fan. Such a fan. I feel like I need to watch it so many more times to fully appreciate all the things. I'm bummed to hear that they just plowed through artists like hamsters on a wheel to get it cranked out, though. Because there's got to be so much work that goes into it. But I loved it. If you haven't seen it, for some
it's so good. I can't wait for the third one, because I think legitimate argue could be made, and probably will be made, that the trio of Miles Morales Spider-Man films is the best 3 Spider-Man film trilogy to be made ever, beating out Tom Holland, beating out Andrew Garfield, technically only had 2, beating out Tobey Maguire. I think that's going to be the strongest Spider-Man set of films. I mean, Tom Holland is likely going to have more outings, so he's not done, but
do you see this leading? And I don't know if you've watched both New York Rockstars videos yet, but there's a case to be made that this is leading up to a live action appearance of Miles in the MCU.
I hope it is. I think Tom Holland's got another couple Spider-Man.
Not to replace him.
Well, I would disagree in that I think Tom Holland has a couple more standalone Spidey movies to make and a handful of other MCU appearances. And then I think Tom Holland is kind of done. And because he's already starting to say things in interviews like, I'll only come back for a 4th one if the writing is excellent, or if. And so what's unfortunate for me is not necessarily blanking on the actor's name. But anyways, he's the closest, and a little bit in the most recent Spider-Man with Tobey Maguire, kind of. We haven't seen an older Spider-Man yet, like an adult with children, who's kind of done everything and war-torn and tired, and he's kind of the closest that we're getting. And so Tom Holland still looks so young that, I mean, I don't know. So I think it would be a good time to introduce Miles Morales, unless they want to do something different and we're going to lose Tom Holland but get an aged Spider-Man that we can see, that doesn't have the Uncle Ben origin story, that isn't going through high school or college, that isn't like an older Spider-Man.
Yeah. I made the mistake of getting off of my VPN from work at some point there and lost you for a bit, but I got the gist of what you were saying. I had to reconnect to my basic internet, but
we'll see. I hope it's a real Miles Morales introduction. I think that'd be awesome. I mean, I think that character, Tom Holland, is going to need replaced at some point. And so if this builds and he flips through the multiverse at some point and then turns live action and there he is, I'm good with it. I think it'd be cool.
I know it's like a duh at this point, but it feels like the multiverse was the perfect way for Marvel and Disney to like allow every story to still be every attempt at anything ever to still be canon, and also open the door to any possibility, and no geek anywhere. It's like the Force. It's like going, how did that happen? The Force. The Force. You can do that with the Force. What? You can fly through cold, dead space. And with the Force, yes. You can do force projection. Yes. This is the multiverse is like no one can ever say, well, wait a minute, anytime ever now. Even like every comic book where your favorite hero has died and then they started over and then they died again and then they started over. Those all still apply now. It's like,
yeah, because anyone can jump through a portal or get let through the multiverse at any time and replace somebody, and we talked Lego. I loved the little, and I didn't realize he came back. I was like, oh, he never came back. Like you never see him like running. And then when I watched the new Rockstars thing, he was in a little scene on top of something. Also, did they cover how that was made by a kid?
No, that's cool.
So that Lego segment, apparently he had done a Lego segment of a trailer, and it was so good that they're like, we just want you to make this Lego segment of the movie. And this, like, I think he was like 14, got to make this, and it was so good. So shout out to that kid, who's probably working for Marvel at this point. That was super good. And then I like that one of them even mentioned, I don't remember how they phrase it, but somebody says something like, I'll check in with one of our best Spider-Man. And that was the Lego Spider-Man. It just, of all these Spider-Man and all the worlds and all the powers and all the versions and iterations, like one of their veterans is like Lego Spider-Man. Well, just made me happy.
Something I missed until I watched the new Rockstars thing was the 1967 version of Spider-Man tries to swing through and catch Miles Morales at some point, and it took until somebody goes, he missed him because he only operates in 2 dimensions.
Oh,
and he couldn't fly forward like toward the camera, so that's why he missed him. I'm like, all those little things that you don't. It's so dang clever and awesome and fun.
Yeah. Well, speaking of Marvel and art, have you watched the first episode of Secret Invasion?
No, I need to.
Did you hear the little bit of controversy around the first episode?
No, already.
It's not about the actual episode itself. Actually, most people really like the first episode. I thought it was great. But here's the little bit of controversy that came out after. Apparently, all this talk about Marvel and artists and being kind of tough on artists and whatever. And so, depending on whose side you want to believe, Marvel used an AI bot for the intro to help curate the intro. Now, all you have to do is look till the end credits and see a bunch of other artists still helped with the intros. But the immediate backlash was like, here's Marvel getting cheap again and not paying the artists and just used AI. Now, if you watch the intro and then listen to the Marvel explanation and then see that the credits clearly show a bunch of artists still helped with what the AI created, Marvel's explanation is, we just thought this was a really cool technology coming out right now, that a lot of the AI art that we see has this really cool secret invasion, skulls shifting. It just felt like it totally worked as this emerging technology right now. And that's all it was. We needed an intro for a 6-part series about shapeshifters and illusions and, who's who. And so we still had a bunch of artists work on the intro, but we had AI generate portions and sections and whatever. So some fans initially were mad thinking that Marvel was getting cheap. But I thought it was after I had saw the explanation of it before I watched the intro. So I was very tuned in. And I thought, that's a really freaking clever intro for shape-shifting scrolls.
Generative AI is quite the topic of conversation in the tech world these days, and the art world. Writing. That's interesting.
You'll have to weigh in, so you'll have to watch the theme. Can you pull up the screen grab of it?
Yeah.
Have to let the audio play, but like if you share like a 6-second clip of it and just watch it while we're on here. If you're listening and you're not on our YouTube channel, you should be subscribed. We only need 500, I think, subscribers to be able to like do more with YouTube. So please go on there and subscribe to our channel.
Is that it?
Yeah. So see if there's like a quick clip. But you should go on YouTube and look up, or just watch the series, Secret Invasion intro.
I don't know if it'll show video.
Already has controversy. It's
You don't even have to let the audio play. It's not important that like you even hear it. It's just.
I'll just mute the guy. Can you see it?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I see it at the top.
So like for the premise of the show, shape-shifting scrolls and secrecy and all of that, it feels like it totally makes sense.
Yeah.
But really interesting. I'll have to get once you've seen the intro and then seen an episode, you've got a feel of the show. I'd be curious.
It feels like the stills may have been AI generated, but they weren't. I don't think AI can animate like the painterly effect that they're going for. Interesting. Wow. Oh, you muted yourself.
Well, that was my point. They still needed a bunch of artists to help with it. So it's not like.
Yeah. Well, hey, we've gone a little over. Man, we can really geek out, my brother. I don't know if we're going to do an episode next week. We'll have to. So obviously Kendall wasn't here with us this week. We'll see if he wants to record. Dillon and I are going to be on vacation together, doing a family reunion sort of thing. So I'm not sure if Kendall's going to grab some guests / co-hosts, but we'll keep you apprised on our social media channels. So that's a great opportunity to plug those. We are at From the Mid Pod everywhere. We're probably most active behind the scenes in what would be similar to like a interact with us or like Patreon at our Facebook group, From the Middle for the Middlers. There's a lot of funny memes and videos and links being shared there and conversations happening there. So check us out there. You can always email us, text us, send a voicemail. We are open to your topic ideas and suggestions. We don't hear from you enough. We love interacting. That's probably our favorite part of doing this thing. So if you have ideas for a topic, if you want to weigh in on any of the topics we've mentioned in the past, let us know. Otherwise, we appreciate your listener and viewership. Be sure to check out our sponsor, artiusman.com, for amazing men's grooming products. Artiusman is ARTIUSMAN.com. Use promo code The Middle when you fill your cart and check out to get 25% off of your first order. Dillon, did I miss anything?
That's it. Hit subscribe on the YouTube channel.
Subscribe.
There is also content of varying lengths. So if you're not always up for an hour and 20-minute episode, there's much shorter content and stuff in the middle. So go check out that.
Subscribe, hit the dingy bell, share it with a friend. If you like us, if you don't like us, bye.